Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I want to thank Esther and Eric for opening up their home to us for our class today. And I want to mention that our class today is the Refuah Shlema of Yeshaya ben Laura. Hashem should send him a speedy recovery. We could also, I know a lot of people as I was coming in had a lot of questions. This is the time of questions, right? Pesach's all about questions, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, and people have a lot of halakha questions. If we want, we could save a little bit of time at the end for anybody who has questions about koshering, products, issues related. We'll also have a lot of classes this Shabbat related to it as well. I know a lot of people who go away often have questions about how to treat their home and what to do when they get to where they're going. So maybe we'll leave maybe 10 minutes or so if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, we'll proceed with what is on tap for today. So I'd like to begin with a little parable, a little story. There once was a man who lived in Israel, had a hard time making a living for himself. So he decided, with his wife's approval and his children, to journey to America and to try and see if he could find some business opportunities, make some money for himself, send some money back, try to help the family from a financial perspective. He gets to America, a couple of weeks in, he's not finding much luck, but he's hopeful. He sends letters back to his family that he's enjoying his time and he's trying to find some work and he thinks Hashem will help him. And about a month in, he gets a great opportunity with a Jewish businessman, clothing retailer. He starts working for him. He starts selling a ton of product and he starts to really make it big. He's starting to earn a lot of money for himself and his family. He's getting very excited. And he has his first deposit that he wants to send back to his family for them to be able to enjoy. He has $10,000 he wants to go ahead and send back home. But he doesn't just want to send it with anybody. He finds a friend of his. He says, I want you to take the $10,000 back to my family. The guy says, look, travel's hard, it's expensive. I'm going to have to take a fee. He said, I want $9,000 of the $10,000. I'll give you $1,000 and I'll keep $9,000. The guy says, it's a little steep. It's a little bit rough. He goes, I don't think you're going to find anything better. That's what it's going to take. That's what I'm willing to do. The man thought to himself a little bit, wasn't so sure. He said, okay, you know what? I'll write up a contract. He writes in the contract something very strange. He says, okay, I hereby give $10,000 to such and such to be my messenger, to go to deliver money to my wife, and I hereby allow him to give her whatever he wants. Signed by both parties. He signs, he says, you agree? Yes, I agree. Sign it, no problem, sign it, no problem. This guy's thinking, okay, this is great. People are looking at him like you are losing your mind a little bit, right? He was taking advantage of the 9,000. Now he has 10,000. He can tell me he can give her whatever he wants. He says, yes, that's what I want to do. I'm going to allow him to give her whatever he wants. Okay. Travels to Israel. He gets to the family's home. He knocks on the door. He sees the wife. He goes, okay, I have some money from you sent by your husband. I'm here to give it to you. But here's the contract. The contract says that I have $10,000, and it says that as you read it, give her whatever he wants. He hands her the $1,000. He says, "I'll be nice. I'll go there." He hands her the $1,000. He keeps the 9,000. The wife looks at him and says, "You give me the 9,000. I give you the 1,000." He says, "I'm sorry. That's not what the contract says. Sorry, it's not how this deal works." Back and forth, back and forth. They're fighting about it. She says, let's take it to a court. Okay, he says, no problem. He thinks he's got this made. They go to a court. The court says, give her the 9,000, you keep the 1,000. He says, I don't understand. This is not what it says. He says, it's exactly what it says. It says, give her whatever he wants. He wanted 9,000. That's what he has to give her. That's what it says. Give her whatever he wants. If that's what he wants, that's what he should go ahead and give to her. He has to give her 9,000. He keeps the 1,000, and it worked out that way. That's how the court ruled. Now, it's obviously a mashal, but the mashal connects, Chacham Ovadia Yosef connects it to a Mishnah that appears in Pirkei Avot. It was a very powerful Mishnah about our mindset towards things in this world, about what we want versus what our needs are and what other people might need from us as well. The Mishnah reads, it's a statement made by a rabbi named Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel says, Aser retzono, make God's will, kirtzoncha, as if it is your will. Kedeshi aser retzoncha, so that God will make your will, what you want, kirtzono, his will. Meaning, there are things in life that we don't always want to do. right? We don't want to fast on Yom Kippur. It's very, very difficult, right? We don't always want to keep to all of the rigid laws of kosher. Sometimes Shabbat can be a difficult burden from the things that we can't do. It upends our lives. 3-day holidays, very long, very tough, right? There's all these challenges that we have when it comes to following the rules and regulations of the Torah. That's God's will, and sometimes God's will does not always accord with our will. Says Rabbi Gamliel, you have to try in all your power to make your will into God's will. Whatever God demands of you, be subservient to him. Say, God, whatever your will is, that's what I want. He says, if you learn to do that, you will find that retzoncha, the things that you want, God makes that his business. He makes it retzono. He makes it his will as well. And he goes ahead and he blesses the person and he sends them the things that they want, assuming they're within the framework of Judaism. He continues, he says, that's on the positive side. Then he says on the negative side, batel retzoncha mipnei retzono. Negate your will for the will of God. You want to put something in your mouth you're not supposed to. You're going to say lashon hara about somebody that was going to get a nice laugh out of everybody, be very, have a nice good time, but you know that's not what Hashem wants of you. So you want to do something that goes against, from a negative perspective, what Hashem wants. Batel retzoncha, negate your will for the will of Hashem. And Hashem says, if you do that, yivatel retzon acherim. God says, midah keneged midah, measure for measure. I will make sure that all of those who seek to harm you, that have a will to harm you, God will make sure that they will not have the ability to do so. If that's not your will, God will make sure that it doesn't happen. So if you resist harming yourself, harming others through the things that God tells you not to do, God will make sure that nothing else can come in to attack you and to harm you. So both on the positive and on the negative, we're instructed here to do something that's very, very hard, to take our instincts, our natural desires, the things that we want for ourselves, the things that our quote unquote Yetzer Hara is telling us that we want to do or we want to have, and is saying, put that aside for the will of Hashem. And if that's what you do, God will make sure that your deeper wills, the things that you really want out of life, will become a major priority for him, and he'll grant you the success in that beracha. A good example that one of the commentaries brings over here is the idea of giving charity. Giving charity is a very challenging thing for people to do. You're taking hard-earned money that might be tight, money that might be scarce, money that you feel you could use and need for a lot of other things, and you're being told to give part of it away to somebody else, to give to somebody else. That is not an easy thing for a person to do. Whether you're on one side of the spectrum or the other, it's always challenging. But what the Torah tells us to do is that if you can make Hashem's will, what Hashem wants, which is that you disperse the money that you have been blessed with to give to other people, to help them out for their holiday needs, for their challenges and struggles that they're going through, all of a sudden Hashem will give you back that in exponential forms, because you made Hashem's will yours. I'm sorry? You can go either way, reversible, right? Yeah, exactly, 100%. The Rabbi's saying, it says in the Torah, when you give your ma'aser, your 10%, aser te aser, in a double language, you shall surely tithe, you shall surely give your 10%. The rabbis make a play on words. They say, aser, tithe, bishvil shetit asher, so you can become wealthy, right? In other words, there's a beracha, and the Torah allows you to test God on this point, which is that if a person gives their charity and they do it wholeheartedly, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives them back tremendous blessing in return. That's because a person put aside their immediate needs at that moment. A person saw a dress that they wanted and saw that that money is going to come out of their ma'aser, that they would be giving that to charity, and decided, I'm not going to buy that because that money was earmarked for a better cause, for something that I'm going to use to help somebody else, and you restrained yourself from doing the thing that you wanted. Hashem says that goes a long way. Then you're going to be able to get exponentially more for you to be able to have the very thing that you wanted. Everything is midah keneged midah, operating in a measure for measure type of way. By the way, just a nice little idea on that point. It always bothered me a little bit that we say we give charity so that we can become wealthy, right? It feels wrong, right? Like that's really the reason why we want to give charity. Yes, there are some people, the Torah guarantees, some people who don't have that motivation, and so it's hard for them to give it up. So the Torah speaks to them and says, don't worry, if you give your charity, Hashem will give you back much, much more. And that motivates them to give. But for some of us who maybe we're a little bit beyond that, feels ugly, right? That's the reason why I'm giving to somebody who's in need, just so that I can get back a little bit more. So I heard a very nice explanation. What does it mean, aser te'aser, that you should, and by the way, it's not always true, right? Sometimes people feel like, oh, I gave a lot of charity. I don't know, I didn't see all of the benefits and the rewards that were supposed to come to me. So I heard a nice explanation. It says, aser, give your money for tzedakah, bishvil shetit asher, so you could be wealthy. But what is the Torah's version of wealthiness? Besameach bechalko, right? When you give charity to somebody else and you come face to face with a person who has less than you, all of a sudden you appreciate so much more what you have. You realize how much Hashem has blessed you with that you really should be appreciative of having. So all of a sudden you're able to do with less, but you feel wealthier. So actually you don't always have to get back a lot more money in return from Hashem. But if you give charity to somebody else and you help somebody less fortunate than you and you gained an appreciation for all the things that you have, that already made you wealthy right then and there, right? Because you have more in your mind than you need to have necessarily in your pocket.
Do you think people give just to get that?
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's yeah, I mean, so I think a lot of people, I don't want to say that the structure necessarily, I think a lot of people give, and it's nice that they could win something or whatever it is. I don't think anybody's sitting there at night going, drats, I didn't win the Chinese auction this year. You know, I don't think there are too many people. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's always exciting. I think it's always exciting for the person who wins. I think most people forget they're even gonna get a call back, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, the Chinese auction, like, huh? Right. Yeah. I'll give you a second, right? I do think there are people who do give a lot of money. And again, it's not to take anything away from them. The act of giving is the act of giving, but they do it for a lot of different reasons. They might do it because it gives them honor. It might do it because other people are watching. Sometimes they feel pressured to give. Sometimes they feel like, why is it that somebody will all of a sudden be willing to give a little bit more when the guy who's auctioning off the aliyah says, oh, and if you do this, I promise you that your daughter will get married and this will happen. Yeah, 5,000, I'll do it, right? It doesn't always have to come in the form of money, but sometimes people feel like I give so that I can have something. It doesn't always have to be money. It could be protection. It could be something else, whatever it might be. Yes, Ellen, you wanted to share. Go ahead.
So my son worked in what?
What are you going to tell us the story? The one you just won.
Oh, yeah, I want to wait. This is a better story. My son worked in Freddie 6 days a week. You know, most kids on Sundays they go. So that's him. That's his sacrifice. Like that's what he wanted to do. And then he had what?
How old is it?
16.
Yeah.
Did you also start?
Does everybody else also? It's only for me? I'm the only person. Okay. Just trying to make sure.
And he made $3,000 at the end of the summer. And he said, it was before Rosh Hashanah, and he said, I'm supposed to give 10%. I said, yes, that's right. He said, so I want to give it to the shul. Am I allowed to do it to give it to the raffle? I said, okay, it's a raffle for a Porsche or $60,000. Yeah, no problem. He goes, okay, so but make sure you go to the shul today, make sure you get the money. It's $300. I bought him a ticket. 9 months later for a night, he called me, he decided to bring a 16-year-old $3,000.
Wow.
The whole shul, when they came to give it to him, they said the message from old men, young men, in between men, was just to show that this little kid who, you know, he really, of course our husband's working, but he really worked. I mean, that's why Freddie's the guy's eating his life. He really wanted to, and he did, he gave back, and to me, he told me a lesson.
That's very nice.
And we rolled his eyes at him. Really, but then of course the rabbi said right away, the $300, aside from the 10% you have to get back to the thing, make sure that's the first thing that goes back. Because now you got something added. So I learned that also when you win an auction,
You have to give.
get back.
Yes, from what you win, you have to also give. From what you win, you also have to give. Yeah.
Let's say you put $200 in an auction package.
Right.
And you win something. And then whatever, you get 10% back of what you won.
Yeah.
Or it's $200.
So what you won.
No, but what if you want like half of it, so you're getting a percent of what that would.
I think if you win a physical item, it's something different than if you earned money. I think a physical item is different. You earned it more as a gift in that situation. When a person though is gifted money, if a person is gifted money, they do have to give. So for example, you know, God bless my mother. Every Chanukah, she gives $100 to every person in the family. I take $10 and I give it to tzedakah. That's a gift. Out of gifts, sure. 10% out of gifts. Yeah. I'll give a little plug if anybody wants. The Zolta family, Jack and Maddie and Maurice just got back from Israel. They put out a book like from Rabbi Bitan and this Rabbi Shayo, all on the laws of tzedakah. It's not a big book in English. You should ask them for it, get it. In there, he writes very clearly that for gifts that a person earns, for gifts that a person is given, inheritance, things like that, they have to go ahead. If it's a physical item, you don't have to give 10% of that. I'm talking about money. Yeah. Yeah, give back. Yeah. Sure. 10%, absolutely.
Nobody tells the couple. Nobody tells the couple that they have to give up 10%.
Of course, they should have to give tzedakah. Absolutely. You know, that's for sure. Yeah, you can do a class on tzedakah if you'd like. It's okay. No, it's great. I want to piggyback off of something that Ellen did. She gave me a good segue. She mentioned the word sacrifice. And I think that if you had to sum up and boil down this one issue, this one Mishnah to what it's talking about the idea of sacrifice. When we say make your will the same as the will of Hashem, or negate your will for the will of Hashem, what are we essentially saying? We're essentially saying that a person in life has to sacrifice for the mitzvot of the Torah, right? And you don't hear a lot about sacrifice anymore today because the world today is a lot about me. It's a lot about me and it's a lot about I, within the I generation. Everything is about what I can get, what I could receive, what I can do for myself, what decisions I need to make for my own success and prosperity. And of course, a person has to live their life, in accordance with making sure that they're taken care of. There's no question about that. But Judaism demands us to think about others, to think about other people, to say, how can I help that person? How can I give back to my community? How can I do something for my neighbor? And of course, what are my responsibilities vis-a-vis Hashem in terms of making this world a better place and following my mitzvot? And those things that Hashem asks me to do are going to make me a better person. I don't always see it at the time, but they're going to teach me discipline. They're going to teach me restraint. They're going to help me refine my character to be the best person that I could possibly be. But sacrifice is a very hard thing for people to do because we want something. In the moment, it's the thing that we feel like we can't live without. And for us to take a step back and restrain ourselves from pursuing that thing, which might not be in accordance with our values or with what the Torah wants of us, is a very big challenge. It's something that's very, very hard. But if we really want to be Torah observant people, if we really want to have a relationship with Hashem, sacrifice is going to have to be there. Because think about it. There isn't a person in our life, let's think about our personal relationships, our spouse, our children, our parents, our best friends, all of those people, what creates that strong bond between us and them are the sacrifices we're willing to make for them. So the heaviest relationship we have, we talked about it last week, a mother to their child. Mothers sacrifice infinitely for their children. From the moment that they're conceived till the moment that they're no longer in this world, a mother's mind is always on their child. And I'm speaking to groups of mothers and grandmothers I'm sure you could corroborate what I'm saying, right? A mother carries their child for 9 months, sacrifices their body, their mind, their everything for that child. And from the moment that they're born, they continue to do that, right? And that's why there is such a love for that child. Sacrifice breeds love. The sacrifices we're willing to make for our spouses and that they're willing to make for us is what breeds a loving relationship between the two parties. The sacrifices that our parents make for us and in turn we make for them in Kibud Avayim is what creates a loving relationship. And it seems counterintuitive, right? Because it should be that the person that I'm receiving loves more. No, the answer is giving breeds love in a much more powerful way. The more I sacrifice for this other, the more I feel connected to this other person. And so the same will hold true for our relationship with Hashem. The more I sacrifice for Hashem, the more I'm willing to go out of my way to keep the laws of Shabbat, to keep the laws of kosher, to not speak Lashon Hara against other people, the more I'm willing to give up in front of myself when it's hard. That's how I'm going to grow my loving relationship with Hashem. And the idea is that Judaism is not easy. Judaism is hard. To be somebody who's connected and in a relationship with Hashem is going to be very challenging because it's going to mean that I have to put myself second and I'm going to have to put others, including Hashem, first. I'll tell you a quick story from the Arizal. The Arizal, going back to our point about spending money, it says that when he used to go buy his lulav and etrog, he used to hand his wallet to the person selling it and said, take whatever you want for it. Don't give me a price. Take whatever you want for it and then give it back to me. He couldn't imagine putting a dollar amount, a price, on a mitzvah that he was going to do for Hashem, to shake the lulav and etrog. It's like saying if a person had, God forbid, their child was ill and they had to have a surgery, there is no amount of money that is too much to spend to save that child if it was their child. There's no such thing, right? You might need help to get it, but a person, there's no amount of money to do that. That's how the Arizal looked at a mitzvah. He said, this is a mitzvah that's going to give me infinite reward. How could I put a dollar amount on it? How can I tell him I'm only willing to spend $20 or $26 or $52? Take whatever you want, and then whatever you don't want to take from me, I'll take it back at that point. He was willing to sacrifice anything for the opportunity to be able to do a mitzvah, to help him breed that relationship with Hashem. And I think there's no holiday that is more emblematic of the idea of sacrifice than the holiday of Pesach. Making a holiday of Pesach is not an easy holiday. It requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of exploration. It requires cleaning. It requires preparation. Even for people who are going away on vacation, what do I do when I get there? What do I do when I'm here? How do I sell my chametz? How do I clean the house? How do I make sure that my thing is kosher? I have to kosher here. I have to kosher there. The worst people are people going away second half. Okay? You only away second half, dunzo, right? Hey, me, right? Going away second half, right? Well, I got to do all the preparations in the house. I got to clean, kosher, this, that. Then I got to go and I got to do it all over again in the place I'm going, right? Okay, so we're in the same boat, right? There we go, right? So it's hard. It's not an easy holiday to go ahead and make. And I'm sure there's moments when we get very frustrated. I can't have this. I have to find a substitute. This doesn't have a marking. How am I going to find it? There's a lot of moments when we have that. But I think the holiday of Pesach teaches us that, yes, if we could sacrifice a little bit of that, give us a little bit more effort and put into it. This is the holiday in which our people did that when they were in Egypt. And that's why we were zocheh. That's why we merited to be able to have our freedom. That's why Hashem chose us to be those people, because we were willing to give up a lot from ourselves in order to put Hashem first. And that's what I want to talk about for just a moment, this upcoming Shabbat. This upcoming Shabbat is known as a Shabbat called Shabbat HaGadol. Anybody know what happened on Shabbat HaGadol? Why is it such a special Shabbat? Huh? Not the split the sea. That's a little bit later, 7th day of Pesach. Huh? They're getting involved in Korban Pesach. Good. So to take you back, let's put ourselves in ancient Egypt. On the 10th day of Nisan, which was the Shabbat before the Jewish people left Mitzrayim, Hashem told them, you got to take a lamb, tie it to your bedpost, and hold on to it for 4 days. 4 days later, God said, he told us already in advance, you're going to slaughter that animal, you're going to slaughter that lamb, you're going to paint its blood on the doorpost as a sign for Hashem not to enter, to be spared from the plague of the firstborn, and you're going to eat that Korban as Korban Pesach on the night of Makat Bechorot, on the killing of the firstborn, and Hashem is with that plague going to take you out of Egypt. Now think about how powerful that was. It's hard for us to imagine it in a modern day world, how challenging it was for a Jew to take a lamb and tie it to his bedpost. Why was that such a hard thing to do? What do we know about ancient Egypt, about their gods? They worshiped these animals. They worshiped the lamb, right? That was their god. So you had to take the lamb, the god of the Egyptians, tie it to the bedpost in your house in a way where everybody could see for 4 days. 4 days, annoying at you, right? You think your alarm in the morning is wrong, right? You think that's not at your bedpost, the whole thing for 4 days, right? And then you have to slaughter it and go ahead and paint the blood on the doorpost, right? And the whole while, what's the Egyptians doing? They're seething, right? They want to kill you, right? And nothing's going to happen to you. You have to have faith and trust in Hashem that God's going to protect you. Nothing's going to happen to you. It's a very, very big ask on the part of Hashem. But why did Hashem ask that from the Jewish people? Because he said, it's time for you to commit to this relationship also. God said, I've done a lot for you right now, right? I know you've been slaves in Egypt for 210 years, but I've shown you 9 plagues. I'm going to take you out of Egypt. Everything is going to be great for you at this point, but I need your commitment in this relationship, right? God says, I got down on one knee and said, will you marry me? Now you need to come and say yes, and need to show me what it is that you're gonna do for me to say that I'm committed to this relationship, to building a bond between us. And that is the Korban Pesach. That's what the Korban Pesach represents. It's our sacrifice, our action that we did to show God we're committed to this relationship. We're willing to put our lives on the line and to sever our attachment with the Egyptians and their culture to pledge allegiance to you. Did every Jew do this? No. They did not leave. Rashi tells us, there's a pasuk after the Jewish people leave. It says, Vachamushim alu b'nei Yisrael miMitzrayim. Vachamushim, what word do you hear in there? Chamesh, only 1/5. Only 20% of the Jewish people who were slaves in Egypt left Egypt. 80% of the Jewish people, says Rashi, according to our tradition, died and perished in Egypt. Why? Because they were not committed to leaving Egypt. They were not committed to leaving. They didn't want to leave. So before we judge, I want to give you a modern day example. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. 100%. Right? Jews, when you read accounts of Jews in 1937, 1938, Jews in Germany, right? As decrees started to come upon them, Jews can't go here, Jews can't go there, Jews have to put this in their shop window, Jews have to wear that, Jews can't write an article, Jews can't hold public office. You're hearing all of these things. Now we're reading about it 75 years later and we're saying, what were they doing? Get the heck out of there. Why are you staying there? It's not that easy, right? It's not that easy to say, pick up my family, go to an unknown place, that travel wasn't what it was today, leave all my belongings behind, leave my business behind, leave my community behind, leave my shul behind, leave everything behind and pick up and go and start a brand new life. No, what does the mind do? The mind plays tricks on you. Oh, it's not that bad. It's just this. They're going to take it away. Don't worry. It's okay. Whatever it is, it's going to stop. You rationalize everything until eventually you get to a point when you finally realize you need to get out, it's too late. Now you're stuck, right? The Jewish people are in Egypt for 210 years. Granted, the conditions were not optimal, but in the end of the day, this is what they knew. This is what they knew for dozens of generations. This is all they had experienced. So, okay, we'll take what we know. A person would much rather live with what they know than to go out into the unknown, which could potentially be better, but could also potentially be worse. If you ever asked yourself why the Jews going through the desert all the time, they're complaining. Why did you take us out of Egypt? Things were so much better for us in Egypt. If we could only go back to Egypt, why are they saying that? How much better were things in Egypt? The answer was it was known. It was easy. I didn't have to sacrifice much. I knew I had to give up. Whatever it is, I had bad conditions, but I had what I needed and I was comfortable, whatever it might have been. To go out into the unknown and follow God into a wilderness, that requires sacrifice. That requires a lot of giving up of yourself. And not everybody was prepared to do that.
Also keep in mind, 210 years later, this is a generation who don't know anything. They were born into this. They don't know this.
Yeah. They probably were happy. They probably said, things are good. They probably counted their blessings at that point. Yeah, 100%. No question. So it wasn't an easy ask on the part of Hashem. Put your life on the line, go against the Egyptians, take this lamb, tie it to your bedpost, and be willing to slaughter it in front of them at the repercussions that could potentially be there for you. The Torah says, when you eat the Korban Pesach, you have to eat it girding your loins. Anybody ever heard that phrase before? Yeah, what does that phrase mean? It sounds very inappropriate. Yeah, it's a little bit of a rub, right? It means because why they used to wear their weapons on their belt, right? It's talking about getting ready for war, right? God says, be prepared for battle because you're going to slaughter the God of the Egyptians. They could very well come right after you. Be prepared to fight against them. Be prepared for war. Be prepared to leave. Be prepared to give everything up that you know right about now for a future unknown that I'm not telling you anything about. Total blind. It's the ultimate act of sacrifice on the part of Hashem, but only if you did that were you going to be spared. And by the way, Hashem made sure that everybody did it as a family. So every member of the family had to do it. I could only imagine, and maybe you could imagine for yourselves, in your own families, having arguments the Friday night table before they had to do Korban Pesach. Are we doing it? Aren't we doing it? Are you doing it? Am I doing it? We're not doing it. Who's talking about this? Right? I can only imagine the fights, right? The teenagers, they don't want to do it, right? The arguments that are going on within a family until the family comes to a decision we are or we aren't going to go ahead and be willing to sacrifice this for Hashem. And the punishment, by the way, later on for a person who doesn't do Korban Pesach, karet. What does karet mean? You're cut off from the nation. This became our identity. Korban Pesach became our identity as a people. If you're not willing to do Korban Pesach, you don't identify as a nation because you don't identify with the sacrifice that it takes to be a Jew. To be a Jew requires tremendous sacrifice and giving of yourself. It's not hard, it's challenging, it's not easy. It's hard, it's not easy, it's challenging, but that's what it demands of us. Anybody know off the top of your head, really pushing you hard this today? What is the only other mitzvah in the Torah, positive commandment in the Torah, something that we have to do that's also punishable by karet? Not a mikveh, but chametz happens to be punishable by mikveh. It's a negative commandment. You're not allowed to eat chametz, right? Negative commandment. But I'm happy that you brought that up because chametz also is a karet prohibition, also tied to Pesach, right? Positive, something you have to do. Fasting on Yom Kippur, though, is you're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur, right? It only applies to men. Brit Milah. Brit Milah. Brit Milah. There you go. Brit Milah is the only other positive commandment in the Torah that's punishable by being cut off of the nation. If a man doesn't have a Brit Milah, he's not able to identify himself together with the nation of the Jewish people. And these two things go hand in hand. If you don't have a Brit Milah, you can't eat Korban Pesach. These two laws are connected to each other. Today we don't have Korban Pesach, so that mitzvah doesn't apply anymore to us. But that's why we're longing for it because it's part of who we are. It's our identity. Now, can you think of another mitzvah like Brit Milah that's more sacrificial in nature? It's almost like you're putting. By the way, the rabbis paint this imagery. You have the sandak sitting in his chair with his legs, and you put the baby on top. The sandak's legs are like a what? It's like an altar. You're putting the child on, taking a knife to the child, right? Does it remind you of anything? What story in the Torah? Akedat Yitzchak. First thing that made Avraham Avinu who he was Akedat Yitzchak. So back to identity. That's back to an identity. The identity of a Jew comes with the idea that you have to sacrifice. But that sacrifice builds that love. Because what's the word? The word that we use for sacrifice in Hebrew? We're learning it now in Sefer Vayikra. We call them what? Sacrifices in Hebrew, it's called korbanot. What's the root word of korbanot? Karev. What does karev mean? To come close. When you sacrifice for somebody else, you draw yourself close to them. You build yourself in a relationship with them. As I said before, all of our most loving people are people who we've sacrificed for and will continue to sacrifice for. And in a time in which everybody feels that we're entitled to something, we're all about what I can get, what I can have, what I'm supposed to have, right? We're all thinking about ourselves. Judaism tells us not to think that way, to think humbly about how I could revere Hashem, how I could think about other people, how I could sacrifice for the people around me, and how I could sacrifice for Hashem. So when something is hard for you in Judaism, when you hear a law that's like, wow, it's really, really tough, right? That's a moment where you're challenged with, can you sacrifice for Hashem? Sometimes we'll be successful, sometimes we won't. But the first part of it is to at least be mindful of the fact that my job is to sacrifice. If Judaism is smooth sailing for you, if it's easy from A to Z, you're not doing it right. I hate to say it, you're not doing it right. Something should be challenging for you, whether it's learning a little bit more, going to a class a little bit more, making sure that you're extra careful about what kosher is, making sure that you're keeping to the highest levels of Shabbat. If you're doing those things, then you should feel a struggle. You should feel a challenge. You should constantly feel like Judaism is pushing back on you, not to the point where you can't do it, where it's impossible, but that you should feel in a struggle. Just like a marriage is a struggle, it's always a struggle. It's always hard. We're always, getting into things with our spouses. But it's that struggle that makes us wake up in the morning and feel like I love the person sitting next to me, who's lying in the bed next to me. If you're not having that struggle together with Hashem, then you're not in a relationship with God. You're not in a loving relationship. You're not close enough to Hashem. You're distant, because the more farther you away from Hashem, the easier things are, because you just do what you want, right? So that's what I think the holiday of Pesach teaches us, to come close to Hashem through sacrifice, through challenge, through hardship. That's why if you ask the question, why did we need to be slaves in Egypt to begin with? Why not just choose us? Here, go to Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov and say, here, take the Torah. Go ahead, serve it. Because if you didn't go through that experience of slavery in Egypt, that hardship, that struggle, you're not going to appreciate Torah. Slavery in Egypt is a cakewalk compared to thousands of years of following Torah. Thousands of years of following Torah. It's a cakewalk. God wanted to test the mettle of the Jewish people. Are you prepared? Abraham's life was hard. Yitzchak's life was hard. Yaakov's life was hard. The life of a Jew is sometimes hard, is hard. It goes through ups and downs, but it's that hard. It's that struggle, that challenge, the slavery that eventually when you get to the end, you could appreciate all of that. You could appreciate the reward. You could appreciate the closeness that you have with Hashem when you rise up and you realize, I gave up a lot and look what I was able to build. Look what I was able to help with other people. Sonia, you had a question? Oh.
They say the reason I is the one sitting in that chair. Is that the reason why they say like the person you choose for that child is very important? They become like very close.
Very attached, 100%. All three people involved, I surely say four, obviously the baby, but the other three people we talk about are the father, the mohel, and the sandat, the one who holds. All three of them are intertwined forever through the birth and brit milah of this child, right?
What's the job of the sandak? The mohel is the one that's actually.
Sandak holds the baby down.
It's like usually the father,
It's
the grandfather.
It's like, you know what it is? I'll tell you, in Akedat Yitzchak, it's good you mentioned that. In Akedat Yitzchak, the Midrash says that Yitzchak said to Abraham, Dad, tie me down very, very tight so I don't move. Because if I move and the knife slips, it can invalidate the whole korban. The whole sacrifice becomes null and void, right? So you need somebody to hold it down when you're doing that sacrifice. Maybe you know what that means, now that you mention it? Maybe it means that when we sacrifice, we need support. We need help, right? Nobody's sacrifice comes just purely on their own. Anytime a person sacrifices, they need the help of somebody else to sacrifice back for them, right? There's a two-way relationship here. Maybe you need the support of a friend or a parent or somebody else to help you make that sacrifice. Sometimes a rabbi could be very helpful. Rabbi, I'm having trouble doing X, Y, and Z. I don't know how I could sacrifice. Give me advice, give me chizuk, a parent, a friend, somebody like that. We need support. We need someone to hold us down while we're making that sacrifice to see our way through from the beginning to the end. And the rabbis tell us, there's a pasuk in Yechezkel where God says to the Jewish people, he tells them, I passed by you and I saw you sitting in a pool of blood. And I told you, with blood you will live, with blood you will live. Twice. Why does he say twice, with blood you will live, with blood you will live? Korban Pesach and Brit Milah. It's through the sacrifice, that giving up of your blood for Hashem that you sacrificed, for the Korban Pesach and the Brit Milah for thousands of generations, that we still have that relationship with Hashem and are so close to Hashem in that type of a loving relationship. The more you give, the closer you are, the more love you're going to have for that other person. Questions, thoughts? Yes, go ahead.
So for Pesach,
Mhm.
talking about sacrificing, cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who are, finally able to go away, or what sacrifice, like, are you really doing? You're not
Taking your kids on a plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like 2.5 hours of full kaparat avonot. You walk out of that plane ride clean as Yom Kippur. Okay, after you're on that flight. How about that? That's what I'm looking forward to. Yeah. No, but in all seriousness, go ahead. I mean, look, nobody says, first of all, you're going to still have to do things in preparation for the holiday. If you have extra time on your hands, prepare something more for your seder, have something to discuss with your children, take the opportunity to take that free time and give it more into thought and meaning for the holiday. Maybe it means, I don't know, on the holidays, sometimes when going away, the holidays on the holiday themselves is much more challenging when you're away than when you're in your home, right? When you're in your home, everybody goes to shul, everybody hears the Torah, everybody sits at the table. Look, I've been away before, and sometimes when we're away, okay, so we, take a can of tuna fish down to the pool, and that's our holiday. So maybe for some of us, it's saying, you know what? I know I'm on vacation and I want to enjoy myself, and you should enjoy yourself, but I'm not going to sacrifice my holiday table. The way I would do it when I was here at home, that's the same way I'm going to do it when I'm on vacation, because it's in the end, it's holiday. I'm going to make sure to stay in my holiday clothes a little bit longer to give my family and myself the feeling that today is a special day. And then Chol HaMoed, I can do my other things that I want to do. So there's ways, if you're looking at how the holiday goes, There's ways, if you're willing to think and challenge yourself, to make it more meaningful in a spiritual way, which might mean that, yes, I get a little less time at the pool. Maybe I'm not willing to go to a certain place on the holiday. Maybe I don't know. These are different things that a person could think about to challenge themselves in those types of ways, wherever you are, wherever you may be, because Judaism is challenging no matter what your situation is, right? I think that's important.